Hello, welcome everyone to my YouTube channel, Tech YouTube channel, Yasumi. I am excited to conduct the session with John Cobb, a highly sought after leadership coach who helps leaders elevate their lives, impact, and income. John has a massive following on LinkedIn of around 90,000 plus, and appreciate your presence here, John. And I'm thrilled to have you to share your experience, expertise with us today. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's good to really meet you.
Yeah, thank you very much for accepting my invitation. I know you have a tight schedule as well. So,
My pleasure.
thank you very much. So, welcome to the discussion today. Can you briefly introduce yourself? Because I have also gone through your profile. Other than that, about your leadership and all your background a bit as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I started off in the Marine Corps. I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17 and went to Iraq a couple times. When I left the Marine Corps, I thought I had a job lined up and it ended up not working out. I ended up living out of my car, homeless, unemployed, and pretty much alone. And I realized that I was going nowhere fast and I needed help from somebody to kind of change the course of my life. No one in my family had ever been to college before. And so I realized I needed people who had been there and done that and done the things I wanted to do to be successful. And so I found these people and I learned from them and I worked my way through kind of dead end jobs and community colleges to eventually graduate from Harvard and went to Deloitte Consulting, did my MBA at Vanderbilt as well, went to Deloitte, and then decided I really wanted to start my own business. So I started my own consulting firm and ended up winning my first contract with Microsoft. Took me a little while, but won my first contract with Microsoft. And that's what taught me that I could really do this. I could have my own business and be successful. So I've been doing that for the past few years and really enjoyed that. And I've moved away from business consulting a little bit toward really coaching leaders to be successful. And that's been really fulfilling for me.
Okay, so can you tell a bit about how did you start your journey as a leadership coach and what inspired you to choose this path?
Yeah, I've had some really good leaders and I've had some not so great leaders in my career, and I've learned a lot from them. Coming from the Marine Corps, hold on, my dog wants me to let her out. Coming from the Marine Corps, we say in the Marines, we make leaders. And I believe that leaders are made, not born. And we learn how to be leaders from the people who set an example for us. And also from the people who set a bad example. So what I see a lot in the companies I work for is that sometimes people are not great leaders because of the example that was set for them. And that's just how they learned to be political or how to, work people as hard as they can. And they've never had the chance to work for someone who set a really good example for them. So for me, early in my career, seeing the contrast between an incredible leader who would literally die for you, that my life was on the line with in a combat zone, and other leaders who would expect you to die for them, that helped me understand what the nature, the heart of leadership is. And so now I get to help people become better leaders, and I think it changes people's lives. I know it changes people's lives, and it changes businesses too. So I like to say I'm in the business of changing people's lives because that's what a good leader will do.
Yeah, thank you. So
Yeah.
it inspired me as well. So
Thank you.
talking about this leadership, what kind of key characteristics or traits you believe that a leader should have or leader should get to learn and get involved in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing is that you are signing up for something that's going to be hard, you are working for the people who work for you. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think, oh, I'm going to be the leader. The people are going to do all the work for me. I'm going to make more. And they don't understand that you actually have a lot more responsibility, both to the company or the organization and to your team. And the leader should be the hardest working person. First of all, if you're getting paid the most, you should be the hardest working person. But you're setting the example for everyone else too. And if you work hard, other people will too. And if you don't work hard, then that's going to set the tone for everyone else as well. So just understand that, getting promoted does not mean that you're on easy street. The second thing is that you have to be a dynamic leader. And this is really hard for a lot of people. Everyone has a natural leadership style. Some people are very empathetic. Some people are very focused on the work and maybe less empathetic. And you have to understand that you need the right tool for the right job. You have to adjust your leadership style to the people and the situation that you're in. And I compare these to tools. If you only have a hammer in your toolbox, that's not going to work very well when you need to screw something in. You've got to have a screwdriver too. So gain the self-awareness to understand how people perceive you, get to know your team, know the situation, and then be able to respond accordingly. So everybody's got that one kind of default, and you need to develop multiple approaches.
Understood. So because of that, so we have to implement that based on situation and people. If not, some conflicts are also occurring. And so what can you say about aspiring leaders to cultivate a growth mindset? So how can aspiring leaders cultivate a growth mindset to continually evolve and enhance their impact in an organization?
Yeah, so one of the things I look for in the leaders that I work with and promote is curiosity. People who are naturally driven to continuously learn. And there are some people who are very comfortable doing the same job day in and day out for 30 years. And there are some people where that is the worst form of torture that they can imagine. And those people who need change, who need to be challenged and want to grow, they make the best leaders. And so, first of all, companies need to identify those people. Someone who's very good at their individual contributor job is not necessarily going to make a great leader, because leadership is a very different skill set. And it takes a different personality than somebody that might be good at the job they've been doing for 5, 10, 20 years. So that curiosity and that need to grow is the first thing I look for. The second thing is, do they bring out the best in people? And this is the other criteria. Aside from being a good individual contributor, are they bringing the right energy to the team? Are they inspiring people and encouraging and challenging other people to keep growing? Those are the real criteria I look for. So, having a growth mindset, I think we need to set the example for other leaders and people in our organizations to have a growth mindset by showing them how we've challenged ourselves to grow and also challenging them to grow and giving them opportunities to grow. So I'm constantly pushing my team a little bit outside of their comfort zone. I have a team member right now that I'm about to move into a program manager role. He probably doesn't think he's ready to. I know he is. So I'm going to push him to something he's never done before. And at first he might be a little bit resistant and have some imposter syndrome or feel like he's not ready. But I'm going to support him and give him feedback and coach him through this to prove to him that he is capable of more than what he's done in the past. And I think that's going to help him develop that type of growth mindset to keep growing in his career going forward.
Understood. So then when working as a leader, in your experience with your team or with the organizations you're working with, what are the common challenges that leaders face when they're striving to elevate their impact and when considering the impact?
Yeah, so a lot of organizations think they have a strategy problem when they actually have a leadership problem. That means they're doing the right things, they're in the right business, they've got the right products and services, but the people that work with them and for them are disengaged, their retention rate is too low. They've got a lot of people leaving after a year or two, and then they have to rehire them and retrain them. That's a lot of brain drain on a company. So the real question is, how do you get people really engaged to believe in the work they're doing and to believe in the company and the leaders they're working for so that they bring their best to the job? And if you can do that, then you're going to be 10 times or 100 times more successful. So retention and engagement are critical and overlooked far too much when people talk about strategy. And those come down to leadership. People have to believe in their leaders. And that comes down to the stories that are told. So if you talk to people across the company, find out what stories they're telling. Hopefully they're good stories. The stories that are told over and over, that's your culture. And the culture comes from what the leaders of the company did when something exceptional happened, when the company faced a challenge. So for example, some of these companies that chose not to lay people off because the CEO took a pay cut so that he didn't have to lay a bunch of people off. That really means something to people. And when people see a leader make a sacrifice for them, they are much more likely to respond by doing everything they can to help the company. There's a relationship there, but it starts with the leader making the sacrifice for their team. Another example I use a lot is General Mattis, who became Secretary of Defense. When he was a younger general in the Marine Corps, he stood guard duty for a very young Marine, maybe 18 years old, on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, so that he could go home and be with his family. And that story's been told millions of times across the Marine Corps. It was one night, but for a general like him to take the place of an 18-year-old so that they could spend time with their family, that story meant so much to so many people. And there are more stories like that about General Mattis, but stories like that shape the culture, and they have so much to do with success above and beyond just the strategy of the company.
Understood. So how do you advise leaders to navigate the setbacks or the failures and turn them into opportunities and growth?
Yeah, you have two choices when something bad happens. You can blame other people or you can take the blame. And sometimes that's the most counterintuitive thing. And I see both. I'm always pleasantly surprised when I see a leader say, this was my fault, I should have seen this, right? Because it's hard to do. It's amazing though, when you actually take the blame, people are more likely to forgive you. If you go around blaming other people, you're going to create enemies and you're going to break that trust. That trust is the glue that holds a team together. And if you say it's your fault, it's his fault, it's not going to work. You have to take the blame when things go wrong, even if it was maybe somewhat out of your control. So, and that's the opportunity. If you increase the trust of your organization by taking the blame when things go wrong, then you are becoming a stronger team, and that's going to really pay off.
Yeah. So since I'm also playing the leadership role, sometimes what I do is also I get the blame, and it improve the trust with the team. So the team works with me, that unity is there and all. How do you help leaders to prioritize? So this is into the balancing the life, actually balancing personal and professional development. So how do you help the leaders to prioritize the self-care and well-being?
Work-life balance.
Huh?
Work-life balance. Yeah. Yes. The work-life balance. So there's an infinite amount of work that you could do for the company, right? There's always going to be more that you could do. And if you are a responsible person, you're a hard worker, you've been put in an important position, you're going to try and do as much as you can. And it's very easy to quickly give all of your time and energy to the company. And that's what leads to burnout, or it leads to a lack of balance, and now your health is suffering, your family's missing you. So how do we balance that? You have to learn to set tactful boundaries, how to tactfully set boundaries. And one of the tools for that is yes, however. So instead of saying no when you're asked to do something, you say, yes, I'd love to help you. However, I have to finish this first. Or, yes, I'll get to that as quickly as possible. However, I am going to be out on Thursday. I don't tell people why I'm going to be out. I don't try to explain myself. I just say I'm going to be out.
Mm.
And if they have a problem with that, we could talk about it. But again, that goes back to trust. I have invested in the relationships I have with the people I work with so that I have the trust that I'm not just skipping work all the time. So I tell people, I can't meet at that time. I have something I have to be at, and I leave it there. You have to be able to set boundaries. And I've worked for C-suite executives at Fortune 200 companies, and they turn their phones off at 5 p.m. And they don't, 5 p.m. Friday, they turn their phone off. They don't turn it back on until Monday morning. And they're able to do that because they have people who are, responsible for them. They've got coverage, right? But if you don't turn it off, it will consume your entire life. You have to learn how to walk away sometimes. And once you do, people get used to it. It's somewhat hard at first to change the balance of how things have been in the past. If you've always been available, if you've always answered your phone. So there's a period of adjustment, but after that, you can have freedom away from work on nights and weekends and still have a great career.
Yeah, okay, understood. So, what role does continuous learning play in sustainable leadership excellence? And how can leaders cultivate a habit of lifelong growth?
Habit of lifelong growth. I've seen a lot of CEOs do essentially book clubs with their leadership teams. And I think that's been cool to read the same book with everyone. And then you're able to challenge each other. You're learning these concepts. Everyone's aware of the same ideas. The 5 dysfunctions of a team. I've seen a lot of teams reading that. So that's a cool way to upskill the organization together. Instead of everyone reading different books and, one person's trying to employ this strategy and that person's trying to change this thing, doing it all together can work really well. And then bringing in outside help. That's what I learned from Microsoft, right? Like, this is one of the biggest companies in the world, one of the most successful companies of all time. And they brought me in to help them with this global transformation. I would have assumed that Microsoft had tons of people just sitting around, waiting to help. But even companies like Microsoft need to bring in outside help. And so all of these smaller companies need to bring in outside trainers to challenge them to innovate and to disrupt themselves before they get disrupted by the market.
Okay. Then, so you talk about the big companies, best companies in the world you are working with. What are some of the most significant breakthroughs you see leaders experience after working with you?
Breakthroughs that I see leaders experience after working with me. I try to help companies establish a common language to understand people's different work styles and the way that they need to respond to situations as a leader. So we talk a lot about dynamic leadership, and it's really exciting for me and them when they find the right way to respond to the right situation and it works like magic. And they realize they've had this problem all along because they weren't responding correctly. It's not just that person is a problem or that project is super complicated. They found the right tool for the job, and because of that, they were able to solve it quickly. So that's really exciting. And then when you see an organization become more efficient and start communicating better, that changes everything. If you have a leadership team that can't communicate with each other, I see it all the time. If the leaders can't communicate well with each other, whether they're fighting or not, maybe they just don't agree on something, that's going to stall the entire company. And so when I get to facilitate a leadership discussion and help them understand people's different languages, because we all have different languages at work, and that's something I talk a lot about and train on. When people understand each other's languages and they are able to communicate more effectively, it is a game changer for a company to make decisions faster, and that opens the floodgates for a positive momentum to replace whatever negativity there had been in the past. So that's what I really enjoy. That's really exciting to watch.
Okay. Then I would like to know about the overcoming leadership hurdles. I mean, leaders often face burnout, delegation of tasks, and struggling, and communication breakdowns. There are gaps in that as well. So, from your coaching practices, what are the strategies, practical strategies leaders can use to overcome those kind of roadblocks?
Roadblocks like burnout.
Yeah, burnout and
Yeah.
time constraint, communication breakdowns are there. Likewise.
So let me say this. I was talking to a paramedic a little while ago, and I asked him, how do you stay so calm when you go into these situations where people, are dying or having a heart attack or something terrible is happening? You show up to a fire and there are people trapped inside. How do you stay calm? And he said, you have to remember that it's not your emergency. And that sounds callous, but you have to be 1 degree removed from the stress in order to be effective. And this is so important for people at companies who put all the stress on themselves. They're absorbing all the stress. And it's great that they're responsible, they're acting responsibly, but you have to be 1 step removed. So I call it a force field. You need to build a force field around yourself to keep all the stress kind of like at arm's distance away from you, so that you can think and function from a calm perspective. It doesn't mean that all that stuff isn't important, but you can't be in a stressed state and manage or lead effectively. So create that force field around you. That's going to prevent you from burning out. It's going to help you make better decisions. You're going to be happier in life. It's going to help you have that work-life balance we talked about. Be 1 degree removed from the work emotionally, and you'll be so much better off. The second part is you have to get away. So I've got a retreat coming up in September for leaders to unplug and refocus, re-energize, and think about the next stage of their life and their business. And that's so healthy for people. If the company cannot function without you, then you're creating a problem. You actually need to step away so that other people can fill in and rise to the occasion. Because if you're doing everything yourself, if you can't leave for a week or even a couple days without things falling apart, then you're not training the people that work for you, and you're not preparing the organization for success. As a CEO, you should always be trying to replace yourself, essentially, or really any leader, handing off those things and training other people to do them so that you can think about higher and bigger things. And it's really healthy for someone to get away for a week. And that's hard, but it's got to be done. At least a week a year.
Yeah, so small companies, when they have only few members assume that I also have worked for startups and all. So for one project, there are only, so I'm working as a business analyst in the business analyst field, as a business analyst. So when I am the only business analyst they have, if I go 1 week for a holiday or something, like that is like practically impossible. So most of the time we can't take the leaves, and like that kind of scenarios occur when we are working for small companies.
Yep.
And as you told, all the stress also comes to us, all the blames are also coming to us. So how can we handle that kind of situations in a strategy and smart way? As you told, like, okay, I can do it, yes, I can do it, but however, I have these things like that. How can?
Yeah, so you need some resiliency in the organization, some redundancy where people are cross-trained. And I try to have 2 backups for every primary person. So I know that might be hard in a small company, but there are temporary people that could step in to help. You could front load some of your work. You could train your coworkers to do some of the stuff that you do. They might not be as good at it or as fast at it. But there are strategies for you to not be so essential. Now, we want to be like needed, but you can cross-train people a little bit, and you could have someone who comes in to help temporarily. I look at the president of the United States. Most presidents take like 100 days of vacation a year. I should look up the actual number, but they take a lot of vacation time as the president of the United States. And if you think, that data analyst on your team or somebody is essential, the president's got an incredible amount of weight on his shoulders, and they still find time to get away. So maybe they get away too much, but there are ways that you can build your team stronger so that you can take a break. And you have to take a break, or you're going to burn out eventually, and then they won't have you at all.
Yeah. So we talked about leadership and all a lot. I would like to know about your organization, what actually it does, what kind of events you have, what kind of coaching approach you are having.
Yeah.
And
so a few different things. I come into companies and I do training to help the leadership teams communicate better. I train managers how to be dynamic leaders and respond to each situation with the right approach. And I do one-on-one coaching for a lot of executives. And then I have this retreat coming up in September that I'm really excited about. We're going to Costa Rica for a week. It's going to be a bunch of executives who are, feeling like they can't leave their jobs. Everybody needs them. If they don't answer an email, everything's going to fall apart. And I'm going to help them learn how to unplug and re-energize and recharge, because they're not doing anybody a service if they are burned out. So that's just a few of the things I do. But I come in and I work with leaders and their teams to help them improve their organizational performance.
Okay. How many team members are there in your organization at the moment working?
So I have about half a dozen people that I work with pretty closely, and I pull people in as needed, but I do a lot of coaching and training facilitation myself.
Okay, that's great. And so I need some advice for the emerging leaders who are looking to advance their careers. What kind of actionable advice or tips would you offer to accelerate their growth and success?
So at some point, you're going to have to step into the unknown as a growing leader. And that's really scary for people. You might have to leave a job where you've been successful. You might have to go back to school. You might have to ask for opportunities that people haven't given you. And these are different muscles that it's hard for people to develop. Some people never do. Asking for what you deserve is a skill, and you need to practice it and strengthen that muscle and learn how to do it tactfully but assertively. Stepping into the unknown is tough. If you've been with the same company for 5 or 10 years, applying to work somewhere else, or even leaving that company before you have anything else lined up to create space for that opportunity. That's scary. Les Brown said that many people choose known hells over unknown heavens. And it took me a while to understand that, but a lot of people will stay somewhere where they are not happy for a long time because they are afraid that they won't be able to find anything better. And I challenge people to have the faith to realize that there's always something better out there. It might take a little bit of time to find, but there are so many opportunities if you are truly working hard and passionate about growing, then you will find something better. Just keep looking.
Okay.
That's all I got.
So, yeah. In my opinion, I personally believe that 5 years working for someone else's company for 5 years, more than 5 years, won't help our growth as well. So we already know the culture. We already know. I'm talking about the software. So we already get to know their domains. We already get to, unless we get the exposure of new domains, I do believe that we have to have the change. Actually, that's my opinion. So what skills or qualities do you believe that it will be critical to have in the leaders in the coming years, in the future, near future?
So everybody's talking about AI, right? AI is great. I use it every day. However, AI actually makes people with leadership skills more important, because leadership is the one thing that AI is not going to replace. Leadership includes charisma and inspiration and relationship and that vision for something bigger, the ability to create a community of people that trust each other. So AI is not going to replace leadership, and I would challenge people who want to keep growing to focus on becoming better leaders. Of course, you need to learn how to use AI and incorporate it into your business, not to replace anyone, but to augment people and to strengthen everything you're doing. But the skills that are really never going away are interpersonal communication and conflict resolution, and the ability to have a vision and plan it out and execute and inspire people. If you can learn how to do that, you will be unstoppable. So millions of people, hundreds of millions of people are jumping on the AI bandwagon, but there are skills that are actually more valuable and will pay better than being an AI ninja in the future. So leadership is irreplaceable.
So, as a conclusion, can you summarize the key takeaways for the audience from our today's discussion, and some final words of wisdom for aspiring or current leaders who are will be watching this video?
Yeah, I'd say learn how to be a dynamic leader, to respond to the right situation and person with the right approach, and you'll be far more successful. Second, get the help that you need. Identify the challenges you're having. Get expert help, whether that's bringing in a coach or a consultant or reading a book with your team. Get that outside knowledge and support to help you be successful. Don't try and do it by yourself. I see way too many people doing it by themselves. They get stuck. They're overworked. They don't know what to do. What they're doing is not working. Get help. Be able to ask for help, even as a leader. That's important. And be willing to step into the unknown and grow and challenge yourself in new ways. If you're in your comfort zone, then you are not growing. So that might mean finding a new organization or a new role, or doing something you've never done before. Maybe it's learning to code. Maybe it's, stepping up and speaking in front of your entire team and getting better at public speaking. Find ways to constantly challenge yourself to grow. And that's actually the most rewarding thing, even though it's a little painful sometimes. That's my summary for you.
Thank you, John. So
Thank you.
I would like to conclude the conversation. So one last question, a casual question from you. So I'm also trying to I'm in the business analysis field. I'm also into business consulting and all. So when you start consulting, was there a challenge or a risk? So since I'm also now working for a company, I'm trying to get my free time to do the consultancy started. I would like to get some advice. And those are online sessions or?
Yeah, let me see about that. You're talking about challenges early in my consulting career or my challenges as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur?
Challenges when you start consulting as
So
a
when I started
leader.
consulting, I had never worked in an office before. Like, no kidding. I had used a real printer like once in my life before I got hired by Deloitte Consulting. I had never worked in a business office environment. I was in the Marine Corps. I knew a lot about machine guns. I did not know anything about PowerPoint. So, a lot to talk about how I got that job without the experience. Short answer is a lot of hard work, preparation, and networking. But you can figure it out as you go. And if you try to have it all figured out before you start, it's not going to work. You have to take the leap of faith and then figure it out as you go. And talk to people. There's a lot you can learn in a classroom or from a book, but those intangibles, that advice and insight you get from having conversations with mentors and other people are really, really important. When you look at like how to get a job, it's not your 4-year degree that gets you a job. It's not your 5 or 10 years of experience. It's the 15-minute networking call you have with someone. That 15-minute call can change everything. And so I encourage people to do more networking and build real relationships with more people. And that insight that you get from those conversations, your ability to help them and how they help you, is what is going to help you the most, whether you're an entrepreneur or a consultant with a company. So keep doing this, keep talking to people.
Yeah, okay, got it. I actually go on talking to people and getting advices, feedback when I do working. So from each and everything, each and every person I'm meeting, I'm asking if I had to work with that person, even a junior, senior. I don't care about that. I just get their feedback on if they see anything wrong. I need to get the feedback, can improve myself. Sometimes I have gone through scenarios like I didn't have the proper senior supervisors. In my field. So I have to report to a technical lead or someone, not a senior business analyst lead or not without reporting to a senior BA lead or someone. So there were some conflicts, or the way of thinking were different. So that kind of situations happen. So what I took the advantage is I learned how the technical people are thinking, how the architects are thinking, that kind of knowledge I got. Yeah, that way I tried to grow, taking the opportunity of whatever the situation I'm facing. That's how.
That's great. Yeah. Most people never get enough feedback. So keep getting that feedback. That's really important. I'm sorry, I got to run to another call, but
thank you.
I challenge you to find a way to take a break, even though it sounds like you're pretty important and you work for a small team. You got to take those breaks. You got to unplug every now and then. So please stay in touch though. And let me know if you have any more questions.
Yeah, no, thank you. So the questions all I had were answered by you very well. And I also learned a lot from you, a great leader like you. Thank you for having your time for this conversation.
My pleasure.
Let's meet soon in near future. Yeah. Thank you, John.
Awesome. Have a good day or night.
Bye. Good. Bye. So, as we are concluding today's conversation, the discussion with John, one of the great speakers, one of the great coaches, leaders in the world, who's having more than 190,000 plus followers in his LinkedIn, who is also giving consultancy to the best brands around the world. If you have any questions to ask from John, just comment in this video. So I'll be taking him again to a near future discussion. So we'll be picking those questions and we'll be discussing and answering your questions as well as I'm planning to do some live sessions. So John will also join. And subscribe to my YouTube channel and stay tuned for more insightful discussions like this with global leaders, global experts in the industry. And if this video was helpful, hit a like on the like button and leave a comment as well. If there are any thoughts you need to discuss, just comment as well. See you on another discussion. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.